A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum Extra. We're coming to you live on Radio 1 FM 90, broadcasting from the Central Building, which is the home of this radio station. We're live on our website, www.radio1fm90.com. You click on the icon with the word listen live. Now, you can find this radio station on the different radio listening apps, which you can obtain from the App Store of your smartphone. You download, look for Radio 1 FM 90, and as long as you have an internet connection, you'll be able to listen to us from anywhere across this globe. You can be part of this discussion tonight by sharing with us your view via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Kindly do not send an audio clip, just send us a text, and the panel will be responding to your question or comment. Today being a Friday, we review the major events of the week. We are going to look at some of the major happenings on the political scene. Probably we'll begin with looking at the Norber Mao revelation, where he actually talked about the political divide in our country. Some 5 political parties on one side, who he actually says are progressive, and those that are not on that particular side, that he says are playing poisonous politics. And he says that group cannot be, trusted with power. It's a statement that has made a wave within the political cycles, and people are discussing to try and understand what exactly does this mean. He actually says, given that implication, the 2026 general elections is going to be very quiet and peaceful without even any procession. And he actually says those who will not accept that situation will be dealt with and made silent. We'll be looking in detail what that statement means for the political landscape as we go into this particular election. Well, we saw the iPod summit that met yesterday with the exclusion of the NUP. NUP says they were not informed about this meeting, yet they are members of the National Consultative Forum, which is a constitutional body where iPod is a mere department, comprising of parties that have representation in Parliament. Now, NUP says this is a wider plan to block them from getting funds they are entitled to, since they are already dialoguing as required by the amended law under the National Consultative Forum. At the summit, opposition leaders expressed concern over the current political environment, including arrest and intimidation. But in response, President Yoweri Museveni, who is the NRM leader, warned them against election violence. Now, this summit ended with Museveni handing over the leadership of IPOD to DP's Norber Mao. Next week, nominations of presidential candidates will begin, and the Electoral Commission says it's ready. Today, it's received its new offices located in Lueza on Entebbe Road, where these nominations are going to take place. Now, a candidate qualifies for nomination after paying 20 million shillings. Now, this can only happen after they receive a certificate that indicates that their signatures they submitted met the threshold. Now, according to the Presidential Elections Act, a candidate must present at least 100 signatures of eligible voters from at least 98 districts. Now, these signatures are validated before the candidate is cleared to proceed with other requirements. Now, today, the NUP party learned from the commission that they did not meet this threshold. The party had booked Tuesday next week for the nomination of Robert Kyagulanyi, but now it looks like they are going to look for other signatures because, according to the data that we have seen that comes in from the Electoral Commission, NUP managed to satisfy the commission only with signatures from 80 districts, and they need to go back and look at signatures from 18 districts. In total, they need about 1,800 signatures to be able to meet this particular threshold. Now, the party leader has urged anyone registered to vote in the districts. There are a number of districts that the Electoral Commission has presented them. There are 36. If you are registered from those districts to vote, you must go. He's asking you to go to the NUP headquarters in Kavule to be able to give them that signature. So we'll be discussing these issues in detail to try and understand the implication they have on the political landscape. The panel. The Honorable Medi Mulumba, member of the NRM party, is an advocate and human rights defender. He's a former MP and commissioner at Uganda Human Rights Commission. Good evening, Honorable Mulumba. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Extra.
Good evening, Anderson, and good evening, viewers.
Ms. Perry Aritua, Executive Director, Women Democracy Network, Uganda Chapter, Pandit on Governance and Human Rights Issues, seasoned election observer. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Extra. Perry?
Yeah, thank you, Kenneth. Good evening, listeners, viewers, and my fellow panelists.
Mr. Ronald Egesa Leonard, political and business strategist. Good evening, sir. Always a pleasure having you on this show.
Good evening, Kenneth, and good evening to my colleagues on the panel and the listeners and viewers all over the world.
From Uganda People's Congress, Mr. Joseph Ocheno, He's also a pundit on governance matters. Quite a while, Mr. Cheno. How are you doing? And welcome to Spectrum Extra.
I thought you dumped me, but I notice now you no longer emphasize the fact that not only am I an African, but I'm a Pan-Africanist. You used to introduce me rather well, very nicely, but what's going on?
There are so many changes going on, including in your life. I've seen you battling with your brother Jimmy Akena for the leadership of the UPC. I don't know how far that has gone. People are planning nominations. You're still in endless battles.
I have never fought in my life. I'm very, very proud, and normally whenever I go to talk to young people, including institutions, I tell them that even that tiny little school at when you're 3, 4, 5, around those tiny little balls has never caused me to fight. So I'm a man of peace. It's shocking that somehow NRA had to find me as somebody the other end of the line. But no, I am a man of peace. I campaigned hugely for return to multipartyism in this country. I campaigned hugely to settle the conflicts in the northern and eastern Uganda. And I continue to campaign for peace in this country and within this region. That's why I reject the mess taking place in the Middle East. So I come here absolutely in peace.
Right, and I want to begin with you, Mr. Joseph Ocheno. We are going to break this discussion into 3, and we are going to begin with the revelation by Mao. Actually, he names your political party, JEMA, PLU, NRM, FDC, and PPP in the coalition of the willing, a group that is willing to sit and talk about the political transition with the NRM. Led by NRM, and then he names the other political parties, I think.
So my NRM friend has to emphasize that I've got to lead on it.
Yeah? The other extreme end. And I want to begin with you very quickly. What's your understanding of Honorable Norber Mao's statement? Some people are actually saying the timing of this statement is so relevant to the ongoing political situation in our country. Mr. Joseph Ocheno.
Norber Mao is a fantastic guy. I have known him for a very long time. And I have substantially admired him. I nearly recruited him into UPC. So did Cecilia Gual nearly 25 years ago. When he formally joined DP, we thought we had missed somebody fantastic. Actually, when he became a DP leader, I'm one of those people who were rather jealous that DP had got a sharp, decent young guy. He still continues. He amazes. He's a friend. He's a personal friend. But I listen to him with interest. Whereas I have a general understanding of where he's coming from and where he's going, and whereas it's also the case that what Norbert talked about is not news, and whereas it's also the case that many of these political organizations have strange bedfellows together, wrapped by NRA, and whereas there are people who may be card-carrying members of Uganda People's Congress in that bunch, as effectively the president of Uganda People's Congress, I am not a party to that. Officially, Uganda People's Congress, as a party, has got no formal relationship with NRA. Officially, Uganda People's Congress today has got no authoritative leader who is mandated to have a conversation with NRA or any other political organization in this case, although we can't wait to have a conversation with everybody else. Norbert's listing, that includes UPC, includes individuals that you know and with whom they have organized decent deals to do whatever they can do on the, if you like, national port of the Republic of Uganda. But interestingly, I have suggested this, that actually, from a UPC perspective, I possibly respect Norbert in the sense that he went into their deal with NRA, had a memorandum of understanding, struck some kind of deal. His vice president, I met the other day, was lamenting that for them, they came out very clearly. They had a program, they had an agenda. Whether you agree with them or not as a political organization, they're a rightist organization that I'm not associated necessarily with. You know, there was an end game and end goal presented. Now, for them, that Mr. Museveni was not able to deliver. I'm surprised that I expected Mr. Museveni to deliver on anything. Mr. Museveni to deliver on anything. It is more about Mr. Museveni's failure to deliver rather than, quote, blame to them. So that's a fantastic attempt. But for the rest of the other political organizations named here, where people deny deals, is rather cheek. So for that, actually, no, but I give him credit. But as far as UPC is concerned, as I said, there are individuals in the UPC who are associated with this group who do not represent UPC. But in any case, because my brother Jimmy is presented there, Jimmy is not the leader of Uganda People's Congress. He's not been leader of Uganda People's Congress. The position of Uganda People's Congress to date is that anything that Jimmy does, almost technically, effectively, is in contempt of court. And I'm sad that NRA guys know and see these things and they continue with impunity. And I'm sad that any other organization that engages with these guys know very well that from the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, High Court, this continues. So in the unlikely event that it was anything to do with the Uganda People's Congress, the process of whatever deal it is would be a nullity. But quickly, in the likely event that we're able to resolve our leadership question in Uganda People's Congress, and very likely in the likely event that I'm the president formally of Uganda People's Congress, we are absolutely open to having a conversation with all the peoples of Uganda. Do you know what, Ken? It was I, over 20 years ago, who led the formal campaign for this conversation, difficult conversation of a National Truth and Reconciliation, a commission in our country. And I know that, unfortunately, some of these friends of ours get pushed by NRA on a particular agenda instead of actually us having a public, open conversation in which we're able to have a national debate, a national conference, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, discuss transition, all of us in the open, but on equal basis, unlike what my good friend from the NRA says, that unless they're actually leading the process, then nobody else is a part of that process. In any case, it's a bad faith thing, it's an exploitative thing. I am shocked that there are people who call themselves political leaders and allow themselves to be dragged to the slaughterhouse like this process is basically effectively taking people. I wish them well.
All right, let's bring in the Honorable Mulumba. Honorable Mulumba, your quick take about this statement from Mao. There seems there's a coalition of the willing in Uganda, and then political parties that are playing toxic politics. And I'm very sure you followed closely this statement.
Thank you very much, Alison. When I heard that statement, I rushed back to what the president said around 5 years ago. And he said, by this time, we shall not have opposition. And so I realized that the president was talking out of knowledge and out of experience. Actually, the Honorable Mao told us, and I think he was very good, he was a very honest man. He named the parties, and he said, I know what I'm talking about. He said, we have two blocks, one which is led by NRM, DP, UPC, FDC, and the DP, there's the DF,
PPP.
Then he said, no, he didn't say that. He said that he thinks JEMA and some other parties are going to come on board.
Bidandi Salih's party.
Bidandi Salih's party is going to come on board.
That's PPP.
And he said they're discussing succession. He actually said so many things. He said the other group is the poisonous group, which is anti-cooperation. And when you look at it, maybe it's a good thing for the country that instead of the country having parties on ethnicity and whatnot, you are going to have parties which are based on ideology, and maybe his ideology of these other parties, the big parties that he's talking about, the majority, maybe that's what is working. But I think what I saw that I didn't understand properly for Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, I think it was wrong to call people poisonous. I think that was wrong. And then it was also wrong to say that you are going to have a silent election. That is okay, but those who are not silent are going to be silenced.
What do you understand by the word silent?
Silent is silent. Just look at it from the English language. Silent is silent. He said silent, you just drive your car, you go to a rally, you talk and drive back, no procession, no making noise. So silent is silent. Why do you want us to read so much into silent? Silent is silent as you can look at it in the dictionary. I think maybe you don't have to silence somebody. Because when you look at this thing, Article, is it 19? talks about right to association, freedom of association,
29.
freedom of association, and it also gives political parties freedom of assembly, and it gives political parties the right to be there. So there are going to be more than one. I think maybe, I don't know whether he meant that they are going to be silent or they are going to be peaceful. But I think we need a peaceful election, and you know what is also remarkable, that the first person from a major party, but again the UPCs are saying that he's not the one. He is the first person I've heard saying that it is not true. But everybody is quiet. FDC is quiet. UPC is quiet. Uganda House.
No, I'm here.
I'm saying you are the only one, but the other people are saying that you are not.
I represent Uganda People's Congress.
Yeah.
Uganda House is under capture. Okay.
But the Jima Kena is quiet. He's okay with it. DP is saying it's okay. Mpuga's party is saying it's okay. Meaning that maybe actually that is the reality. And he talked about succession. Maybe the other thing that maybe needs scrutiny is why he said that succession is not going to be about elections. Of course, in Uganda, the law is very clear that we have elections. I don't know whether maybe he meant that we are going to have to choose one person. We are going to select somebody who is going to run for elections. And, you know, I would really think that where he said that we have, you know, power belongs to the people. Article 1 talks about that. But at times there is a problem with that. At times with some of the leadership, they say so many big words without substantiating. And when they don't substantiate, everybody starts thinking about interpreting it the way he's interpreting it. But I think maybe one thing for sure, that what he's saying is it is in line with what the president said.
Right.
Because now it is now very clear. Actually, maybe it is high time that they even tell the members of their parties to actually join NRM once and for all. Because you know, when they join NRM, then we are going to have peace and a good thing. Because actually it is in line with what the president said. That we are not going to have opposition.
We know you come from the NRM, but an interesting thing I also noted from the statement of Norber Mao is the inclusion of NRM and PLU in the same block, and also says there will be some people from PLU there. What's the implication? We know PLU is led by the Army Commander, the Chief of Defense Forces, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. What is his interest? What will be his role in this group here?
I think the Honorable Mao misspoke, because PLU is not a party. PLU is a pressure group, and actually, frankly speaking, the general told PLU members to go and support NRM. It is a pressure group within NRM. So I think he misspoke when he talked about PLU, because PLU is not a party. But what he spoke rightly and correctly so is the parties, DP, FDC, JEMA said maybe, DF. Those ones, I think they were talking about parties.
A pressure group led by the army chief?
No, actually, it's not led by army chief. It's led by Toyota. The army chief's.
What is his role?
Steps aside.
We'll be coming to.
We're going to come to you. But he stepped aside. And Mr. Toyota.
The Honorable is running away from my question. I asked a simple question: what would be the relevance of PLU in this room? Because, like Mao said, the decisions of transition and succession will be discussed in rooms, closed door rooms,
you know,
and not our TV channels and things like that. That's what he's saying. So we just want to understand. That is why
that is why I'm saying that including PLU, he misspoke. Because PLU is not a party, it is part of NRM.
There is somebody who I heard responding to this Mao's statement who actually says Mao spoke with the spirit of discernment. I don't know what that means. They say, in Uganda they say emandwa yabwanika yamulinye kubongo nayogera amazima. That's the kind of things that we have.
I also told you that I think he was very honest, because he even said, I know what I'm talking about. And for heaven's sake, he's the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs and the leader of DP. So you cannot say that he misspoke.
All right. Spectrum X on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll hear from Miss Perry Aritua, but also hear from another panelist, Mr. Ronald Egesa, who is also here in studio. Spectrum Extra continues after this break. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 Well, we're glad that you're still with us on Spectrum
Quite
Extra,
impressive.
reviewing the major events of the week. A panel of 4 Honorable Medi Mulumba, Ms. Perry Aritua, Mr. Ronald Egesa, and Mr. Joseph Ocheno. And at the moment, we are focusing on a statement which was made by the DP President, who is also the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, about what you deem the coalition of the willing and the coalition that is on the other side, that he dubs as poisonous players of politics, who he says must not be trusted with power. He made that statement at a press conference which he held Tuesday this particular week, and it has implications on the 2026 general elections, because he actually says the much anticipated political transition from President Yoweri Museveni to another person will not actually be determined in an election setting. So why are we having an election anyway? He actually says it will be determined in closed rooms. He also says the next election will actually be very quiet, and those who try to make noise around it will be made silent. It's a heavy statement according to some people, so we are trying to digest and try to make sense about it. Next on the microphone, Ms. Perry Aritua, your take on this statement by Honorable Norber Mao.
Thank you, Kenneth. I think for me what is unfortunate, as someone who believes in the importance of young people and their participation in governance, is that you cannot other a group and say that they are poisonous, because a culture of political exclusion actually breeds violence. Because then you make that group that you other, meaning, like, when you refer to them as poisoners, you are almost delegitimizing the existence. And we know Uganda is a young population. The median age is like 16. And we also know that right now NUP is the major opposition political party, which has a number of young people. So for me, it would actually be wise to find a way of ensuring that they are included in the conversations.
Well, he didn't mention NUP. I don't know why you're picking on that.
No, because he mentioned the parties that are in the cohort of the willing, and we know it is only PFF and NUP, which did not seem to be mentioned.
There's also ANT.
And also ANT, but I'm emphasizing that NUP is the major opposition party and it has a young population. That's a fact which cannot be denied. And for me, my sadness is that when you're talking about a country and you're thinking about transition and you have a demographic which is a huge number, you cannot other any other political party. Your focus as leaders should be, how do we include them in these conversations? Because if you don't, you actually end up causing frustrations among those who do not associate with you, and rightly so. It's constitutional. You don't have to associate with a party that you don't want to associate with. So unless you are, and I say this because Uganda is a fragile state, so each statement that the leaders make, I would beg that they think about the implications. The other thing is we have a lot of clientele, like our politics is so monetized, it's based on, we have certain things that have not been addressed from the previous election. So when you start saying that there will be silence, for someone who because the word silence can be interpreted in various ways. So the clarity in terms of communication is very critical, especially in a state like this. If you're talking about democracy, there are certain words that you cannot afford to use because you want people to associate. You want the energy of every Ugandan to be part of this conversation. As we go into an election, I think it's important for the leaders to be a bit more careful in the way they communicate, because each word they say has implications. Right now, we're struggling with understanding what did he mean by silence. Why did he say there's a group which is poisonous? You cannot afford to use those words. And that's why I say I was disappointed, because we know the Honorable Mao is he's a smart individual. So you would expect that for him at that caliber, knowing the kind of context we have in our elections based on 2021, is you want to try and bring those others who may not believe in this direction of having, closed room conversations, to be in that closed room. Because they are a stakeholder, whether you like it or not. So for me, that's my take. I am just hoping that as we draw nearer to the election, some of the statements are more inclusive, and that instead you are urging Ugandans to participate, but to participate while exercising their responsibility, but also for those who are duty bearers, and when I say duty bearers, it's the Electoral Commission, to play their part with impartiality, with independence, because that's what creates confidence in an election. When you know that the duty bearers are going to organize this election, they are going to be fair, they are going to be just, they are going to exercise their roles as mandated by the Constitution.
But Perry, as a matter of emphasis for you, duty bearers must and should also include the Ministry of Justice.
Yes.
And duty bearers must
include
also the Ministry for Internal Affairs.
And the security,
and in which case, in fact, civil security, that's why I'm emphasizing that, meaning the police and nobody else. And to say, as you said, no, government is vague. You know, government can come from anywhere. Government can come from the bush or wherever it is. Look, I am genuinely surprised and that Norbert went to that line. At some stage when I first got it, I was rather busy. Initially, actually thought it was possibly, these days can be fake news, or because he was addressing the media that maybe somebody provoked him, and so I held back. But to reemphasize, I genuinely was rather surprised by the tone and context, and that's why I gave the introduction indeed.
Yeah, so I was just emphasizing that right now we should be focusing on the role that the duty bearers will play in giving confidence in this election, because when people feel you are not exercising your role independently, impartially, that's when you actually start seeing agitation. And that agitation is not because they do not want to they don't want a peaceful election, but they want you to apply the laws equally. They want you to listen when they are telling you there's unfairness. And responsibility becomes easier to exercise if you know that the duty bearer is playing their role as mandated by the law. So I had thought the emphasis would be giving confidence to Ugandans that we are going to do our best to ensure that the institutions function, that those who, because they are duty bearers who are in charge of security, and we know what happened in 2021, so to just give assurance that we have done our due diligence to ensure that Ugandans are protected, that their rights are promoted, because that is the mandate of the state. For me, that was my expectation.
All right. Yeah. Let's go to Mr. Gesa. Mr. Gesa, let's also hear from you. What do you make of Mao's statement? Like you've heard, it's an interesting statement that very many people are digesting from different angles. Let's hear your take.
Thank you, Kenneth. I want to take you back to 1986. When President Museveni came to power, he was officially 42 years old. Now, he has ruled us for 40 years. He's making 40 years in January. So that means by next January, he will be around 82 when he clocks 40 years in power. Now, the individuals who are leading either parties or factions of the parties that Honorable Mao mentioned, as members of the coalition of the willing, I want to just put a spotlight on those individuals. 1, Norber Mao, 58 years of age. 2, Nandala Nathan Mafabi, 59 years of age. Jimmy Akena, 57 years of age. And then I will also point out Asumani Basalira of Jema. Though that one, we can actually ignore him. He's running a one-man party. Do you know the Secretary General of Jema? You are in the media. Do you know?
Yes, it's
no. Kenneth is in the media.
I know.
You know. Can you mention?
I know.
This is a briefcase outfit.
I know he's the Secretary General.
No, it's a briefcase outfit which is just used to collect money. Yeah, and So
it's a fully registered political party.
I have my opinion.
That competes.
Mine is to analyze. You can have a party on paper. Mine is to analyze and tell you that this one is inconsequential. This one carries weight. This one, So why I'm putting a spotlight on the ages of these people is that they are people who have just gone through their youthful years, then gone through a midlife crisis, spent in the opposition trenches, where, Norber Mao is the same man who told us. I was an ardent listener of one of the political talk shows where he said, he was a regular panelist, and he said that the fish starts rotting from the head. That was, amidst one of those major corruption scandals.
He actually said recently that he's a professor of opposition politics.
Exactly. So they have President Museveni's long stay in power has extinguished the political hopes of these gentlemen. After going through midlife crisis, and they have gone into their late 50s, now they see no hope. They have turned themselves into Semeika Kungurus of the President Museveni dynasty. So now they have become political brokers. Yeah. So this is now a group of people who have turned once respected political parties into they're actually now slightly better than the gig political parties that I talked about recently. You know, I talked about parties like the Ecological Party, the DF, which are financed. I mean, they are gig political parties. The owners are running gigs. Now, the Maos, Mafabis, and Akenas are transforming parties that were once respectable into something of the sort, like gigs. But for them, it's just, survival, because their political hopes of ascending to the presidency have been extinguished by President Museveni's stay in power. So now they are thinking, if I die today, I will die without being a minister. I will die without being named Attorney General. I will die without being named, to a lucrative position in government. So this is my time. So these guys have now turned parties into meal cards. So Norber Mao, Nathan Nandala Mafabi, Jimmy Akena, and the group have turned their political parties into meal cards to go and negotiate their position on the dining table. Yeah. Okay. Granted, I have nothing wrong with someone coming to negotiate, because politics, at the end of the day, is the art of deal making. They have to distribute resources. But for him to now go and say the other guys are saboteurs is quite disingenuous and quite unfortunate. We should actually be calling him out. In a serious society, he would be called out and told to resign. You cannot be a Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. The irony, constitutional affairs, and you even a lawyer at that, and you say the others are saboteurs, as if they don't have a right to enjoy their difference in opinion. So we need to put that into that context. That is the context in which I look at what Norber Mao is saying. Yeah. So his political hopes have been extinguished. So are the political hopes of the other guys that have, traded their parties to go in bed with the NRA or the NRM. Yeah. Beyond that, I want to add one thing. Honorable said that the NRM is leading, for emphasis, he said the NRM is leading the coalition of the willing. Yeah. Now, what Norber Mao's words actually provoked me into thinking, well, this is a party, a wedding party. I have mentioned here before that the coming election, President Museveni is the groom, okay? Who is sure that he's going to get his bride? Yeah? Now, we have groomsmen, lady boys, flower girls. Okay? Now, the coalition of the willing has groomsmen, page boys, and flower girls. Now, for purpose of context, Kenneth, flower girls and page boys tend to enjoy the wedding more than the groom.
We can't allow you to describe leaders to that point.
No, you cannot. You want to become a dictator as well. You have to allow me. This is my freedom.
Not only that, this language of analogy, and Norber Mao is perfect at that.
You see, these are page boys. Page boys will never understand what it means when you're going to a marriage. You're going to a union. So when family members say, we don't like that bride that this man is going to marry, the page boys will not understand, because for them it's an opportunity to put on a tuxedo.
Maybe it's the chairman organizing committee.
No, it's not. It's a page boy. No, it's a page boy. No, it's a page boy. The page boy is excited.
Chelo is about to ask you who is holding the chairman's bag.
I am getting jealous, concerned. No, by the way, as a matter of interest and very personal, my daughter wedded recently. And it was a fantastic wedding. And by the way, one of the few things when I returned from exile that I genuinely enjoy at home, the Kuangela, I've said it again and again, and weddings. And part of my concern is that people don't keep time. These things should really start from 10 o'clock in the morning, get the colorful event, hit 4 o'clock, and people genuinely dance. I'm trying to emphasize, because in this event, these things can be absolutely, generally fantastic. But anyway, this one here, it has struck me here.
All right, let's go back to, if you can conclude your point, Mr. Gesa.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that the marriage is the plight of the Ugandan citizen. The bride is the presidential term to be won. The groom is Museveni, President Museveni. And the page boys are the so-called coalition of the willing, the smaller players. So in that respect, I concur.
But who's the best man?
Yeah, the best man could actually be, the bigger player. I think FDC could be the best man.
It may not be like that. Actually, one may be a chairman.
No. These are page boys. These are page boys. Now, the page boys don't understand the repercussions of marriage. Yeah, they do not understand that after the dancing, the merrymaking at the reception, what is going to happen after when people go to consummate the marriage. They do not understand. They are excited. So it is that excitement of being at the party that is making Norber Mao speak. Norber Mao is a very honest guy. He speaks his mind. He speaks his mind. And for that I credit him. But he needs to be handled by seasoned political strategists. He cannot go on speaking carelessly like that. Most of these guys just need handlers. So Ugandans will be taken aback that their Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs comes and says that people who are opposing the sitting government are saboteurs. Now, okay, I have mentioned here before that the NUP has sympathizers within the first family. Are they saboteurs?
Well, Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90. Topic of discussion today, we're reviewing the major events of the week. And I want to go back to you, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, because we need to move away from this topic. I would just like to hear your concluding remarks on this issue. Well, you've heard from the panel around the table. The concerns is that this kind of statements do not augur well with the political environment. So what do you think needs to be done to move away from those kind of statements?
Just very briefly, I was thinking that if this statement had been made by anybody else in this regime, I think everybody else would be up in arms. And so Mr. Museveni is a very lucky guy. So sometimes actually people think and believe that this guy really does organized witchcraft of sorts. If not, then the powerful gods of different places really work with him. The Pachwezi really because...
But you see, you need to realize that this week Museveni's ministers have been making statements. I'm sure you also followed the statements of General Kahinda Otafire. Yeah.
Can you imagine that? And can you imagine the contrasts and the extremes? Sure. So Otafire taking the position that he actually did. Again, you wonder, where is Otafire? Where is he speaking from? Was it back at some? Turns out it's at low side. No. So Norber Mao's statements, just as I guess has said, is a net confirmation. And maybe one of the things we underestimate, particularly those of us in the opposition, is we underestimate how much these guys had been perfecting their games over a long period of time. Because some of these guys, as named, had been mentioned over the last 5-10 years. And for those of us who've been in this activism for a very long time, I'm not particularly surprised. But really, it's really about the contextual taste of this whole thing happening today. So it's really sad. And just like, again, as Perry said, this is really a message and a message to our friends in NRA. I think the timing, starting really from now to elections, and considering the madness that did occur in 2021 elections, I think it's extremely irresponsible that anybody associated with this power should not be talking to us to persuade us to moderate, to persuade us to come together, to persuade us to put emphasis towards peace. But other than that, here we find an apparent arrogance, an apparent sense of impunity, and actually, in my opinion, shocking deliverance of a system that is far worse than Idi Amin. But in Idi Amin's case, we knew he was a dictator. Maybe
we're being unfair to Mr. Norber Mao. He went there hoping to discuss a political transition for this country. He has been inside there. He has probably tested and knows exactly what is happening. And he's telling you, unless you negotiate with Mr. Museveni, there will be no political transition, even through an election process.
That's actually...
We should give him some credit, maybe.
That's right. As I said, Norbert is a friend, and I engage Norbert various in different open spaces. Up to this Perry, the Norbert I thought was, you're right, Norbert, the frustrated guy from DP for whom NRA was not delivering. What is it that could make the about turn to make him present this? And as I said, Charlie, in my interjections, I actually genuinely thought that somebody in the media had provoked him. But turns out that it was a very long submissions. And like I guess I said, Norbert is a fantastic, considered guy, both with language and depth. So he genuinely knows what he's talking about.
All right.
Is it the case that something has happened within the last few days where this coalition of, so-called coalition of the willing, have come together and they've completely resolved that theirs is the way, and so that all of the rest of us Ugandans, we are out on our own, and these guys are pushing a very specific agenda with a specific deal? Sort of, it leads me nearer towards that. So that now, starting with Norbert as being almost the de facto spokesperson for the organization, then we don't want to know what happens to that. But except, as I said, unfortunately, for them, Uganda People's Congress's name is basically a desecration because we don't exist there as a political party.
All right, let's go to Honorable Mulumba. Your closing remarks on this particular topic before we move on to another topic.
Thank you, Anderson. What I want to say that in 2021, the Ugandans voted NRM and mandated President Museveni to form government. President Museveni formed government, and along the way, he appointed Norber Mao to be minister. And Norber Mao is working in the NRM government, whatever you want to call it. And we are not in a coalition. Norber Mao, what he said, he was echoing what the president used to say, that with time we shall not have an opposition. And now Mao is saying, yes, the five, we are cooperating. And he was very honest. He said the two may follow, but they have not yet followed. But he said the five, we are cooperating. And we are working on the transition. Don't think it's going to be on talk shows. Don't think it's going to be wherever it's going to be. So he said it. Because first of all, even the opposition, I think is the one who is leading. We also know that in UPC, we have a minister. No, in the opposition, as a minister, he's the highest ranking, whatever. Like,
Opposition figure in cabinet.
In cabinet, yes. It is Mao and Amongi. You know? Amongi. So now, when they come...
Who is now contesting again on UPC ticket?
Yes.
My party has suffered.
On UPC ticket. And you know, they are quiet. They're not saying that, you know what, he's lying or he's not lying. So the truth of the matter, possibly, like Mao was telling us, the transition is taking place in boardrooms. And to allay Perry's fears, he said the five we are talking about a transition. Maybe the other group can also be talking about a transition, to say, because actually he said the other ones are saying the
Agende
is the Agende what Tualemese. So there is Tualemese group, and there is this group you're saying we are making a transition. People must be silent, and it must be like that. Yes, I think I also concur with you that people in power need to be elaborate on what they're talking, what they're saying, and we need to desist from using some words. You know, when you use words like poisonous, when you use words like you are going to silence them, when you call people animals, it is a harbinger for bad things to happen in the country. So I think right now what we need a peaceful electioneering, and we need people to keep law and order. Actually, I heard the group that they said is poisonous. One of them was saying, I'm not going to be silent even when I die. I'm going to...
that one, I saw that one. That one was speaking to some constituency.
A page boy
yeah.
easily get away with
one of the page boys was speaking like that,
yeah?
was it?
No, a page boy like Honorable Mao can get away with such statements. Why? Because he's not held to the same standard as the family members, the brothers to the groom. Yeah?
The bit about it, that it was stated by Norber Mao. And you know, when Norber Mao when he was appointed minister, he said he's working on a transition. Some people didn't accept that he's working on a transition. Actually, the president came and he said something different. But basically, he's talking about a transition that he's working on. Maybe it is also important.
Could it be Stockholm syndrome?
Not really. I think he knows what exactly he's saying, and
yeah, but even when you're under Stockholm syndrome, you know exactly what
that's correct.
Saying.
That's correct.
It's just that you've been conditioned.
That is your statement.
No, but even yours is your statement.
Extra on Radio 1 FM 19.
Stockholm syndrome.
We are going to go for a break now.
Terrible syndrome.
When we return, we will hear from Perry on this particular topic before we switch our gears to look at the iPod Summit why NUP is being excluded and the issues of money therein. We'll also be looking at the nomination of presidential candidates, issues to do with eligible signatures and the concerns around the political environment as nominations and campaigns are slated to begin. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. Spectrum Extra will continue after this break. Thank you so much for staying with us. We are live on Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90, and we're reviewing the major events of the week. I have a panel of 4 people here in studio to do that particular analysis. The Honorable Medi Mulumba, member of the NRM party, advocate and human rights defender, former MP and commissioner at Uganda Human Rights Commission. Ms. Perry Aritua, executive director, Women Democracy Network, Uganda chapter, pundit on governance and human rights matters. Mr. Ronald Egesa Leonard, political and business strategist, and Mr. Joseph Ocheno, member of the Uganda People's Congress, pundit on governance issues, is also a Pan-Africanist. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, your host. We have a number of comments coming in from the listeners, so I'll read out some of these comments and then continue with the discussion. We have a comment that says, hello, Spectrum Extra. I think Honorable Mao will be dialoguing with General Muhoozi and not Judge Museveni, because surely what will the discussion and decisions benefit? Importantly to note is that Mao will also be retiring soon. I don't know. That's a prediction of this particular listener. Ham, listening in from Entebbe, says Mr. Museveni is skilled at turning very bright people into something everyone else despises. Then we have another comment here, Spectrum Extra. Is Uganda a limited company whose operations are decided by only shareholders? That statement was not a forethought. It was misplaced. That is Lumbuye Lawrence, listening in from Zigoti. We have another comment here from David Ocheno, says at present there is no substantive UPC but well-informed sources intimate that Akena has legal powers over the cherished party properties, including Uganda House. He's the only person with the powers of attorney from his late dad to access its land title. So can Otieno tell us where he hangs between legalese and legitimacy over his contestations for UPC leadership? And then we have another comment. Can Otieno also tell us why Olara Otunu, past UPC president, is silent about the ongoing leadership contestations between Akena and him, the legitimate heir to UPC through the throne inherited by his dad in our mighty party UPC. This seems to be a UPC member writing with passion. Then another comment, thanks for the program. This is no longer a surprise that Honorable Mao says. It's now open secret that Mao is outside green and inside yellow like a pumpkin. Also, everyone that Mao decided to sell his soul for a meal card, as he used to call it, he has to defend his card. Honorable Tafire put it very clear how they captured power when they were young people and everyone was dismissing the group to manage the state. Today it's NRM. It can never live forever. Another comment, good evening, Spectrum Extra. Jaja doesn't believe in democracy. That's the reason he doesn't want to hear the issue of democracy. He's a freedom fighter. So we have to wait until when he's weak to either walk or even to stand. Ugandans who love democracy should be patient. Have you ever heard the president saying the security personnel should be held accountable for any wrongdoing? So he will praise the actors instead. That's a comment that comes in from Mawa Amaza Moyo. Then another comment here. My comments are the issues at hand. Honorable Mao was very honest with his submission, avoiding creating false hopes to the opposition politicians with high expectations from dialogue. Secondly, the principle of if you can't fight them, you join them. The red line has been drawn between NRM with its allies, the rigid and aggrieved. When President Museveni said Uganda etandiso kumpomera, he meant that he meant what Honorable Mao amplified yesterday. The opposition has been exposed to the marrow and now turned out to be political kayungris or brokers, which draws us back to the colonial chiefs. That's a comment that comes in from Kamogo Fred Keta, listening in Kira municipality. Well, so many other comments are coming in, but let's go to Perry very quickly. I'll read more comments when we return. Perry, your closing remarks on this particular topic before we actually move on to the iPod Summit issue.
I think I'll just reiterate what I said, that any country that neglects its majority, and here I'm talking about young people, and why I keep saying young people is because we know that if you want to see young people in most of this politics, it is NUP. That's our reality, you know. We also know that ANT, also, you know, there are values that they cherish, which are actually good for this country. I think it's People's Freedom Party, the one which was formed recently. We also know they have some astute politicians. For me, the advantage for this country would be to ensure that we tap onto the expertise of all these other actors, so that we don't lose out on the things that they bring on board. And so for conversations that are very key for this country, for instance, if we're really saying there's going to be negotiation in terms of how we transition, it must be inclusive, because then you're able to ensure that there's ownership for whatever decision will be made. But if you sit with a few people and you think you can make a deal and you have excluded a certain category of people who by right actually are supposed to be able to associate differently, I think we risk doing certain things which will haunt us when we don't realize the results of what we expected. So for me, it's how do we continue to build a culture where consensus, which involves different actors, becomes a culture, instead of the cherry picking and hoping that the problem goes away, because then we are building a foundation on sand. And you want a country where long after the president is gone, we're able to know that this country will continue based on certain seeds that we must plant now. And for me, that is getting everyone on board, regardless of whether we agree with them, but also ensuring that when we are making certain statements, we are mindful that we are dealing with a population which is largely frustrated because their day-to-day incomes do not match the reality of the day. You have a big youth unemployment. You have a number of problems you're dealing with. So you do not want to make the frustration drive them into actions that are not good for this country. And that's why dialogue is the way to go, but it must be inclusive. Whatever we choose, it must be inclusive.
All right, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, there were comments directly to you.
Just quickly, on the question of Uganda House and James Akana. Jimmy is a brother of mine. We were once upon very close friends. We are still friends, but we are no longer very close because of the obvious fundamental issues.
Your political adversaries now?
No, constitutional breaches. Jimmy fundamentally breached the constitution of Uganda People's Congress and has taken the party in a direction which is completely inconsistent with the values as I know. Jim and I returned to Uganda together. I was head of that political delegation as appointed by the president. So I know.
By the way, we were told by the Electoral Commission that they are going to invite you, 3 people who are involved in this battle for leadership in UPC. You know, the UPC is the custodian of political parties. The Electoral Commission. Has that meeting happened? Dialogue.
We expect. I've heard something along those lines from my lawyers. So we expect to have something like that, but I don't know anything beyond that. And I found it very interesting that something like that is happening. But so I was saying I was head of a political delegation to return home here with Jimmy. So I speak from authority. Number 2, Jimmy is Milton Obote's 3rd son. So people always think he's the eldest. Milton Obote's hair is called Tona Kaki. By the way, I'm also the official permanent spokesperson of Milton Obote, self-appointed, if you want me to re-emphasize that. So I know it. So as far as Milton Obote's private estate is concerned, I don't know anything about it and I don't speak about it as a family. That's a matter for them. So anything to do with the property that involves Milton Obote, that's a matter for their family. Uganda House is Milton Obote Foundation. It's a property of Uganda People's Congress, but the Uganda People's Congress doesn't run it. It's a good, complex relationship. So it has Milton Obote's name. It has got nothing to do with Milton Obote's family. Direct.
It's a company called Milton Obote Foundation.
Company called Milton Obote Foundation. Massively impressive that they founded it at the time when they did.
Does UPC collect any money from Uganda House?
No, on the basis Milton Obote Foundation collects and runs the organization. UPC has a permanent address, 6th floor. And Milton Obote Foundation will support UPC in different activities from time to time. That is the relationship.
All right.
And it's purely that. Now, as far as Olaro Tunu is concerned, very quickly, Olaro Tunu is retired. I would have liked him to see him much more actively involved in affairs of the party, including some of these issues. He is not, but I think that's a matter for him.
All right. One last comment coming in from Ben. Anderson Mao's statement was reckless and disrespectful of citizens of Uganda, irrespective of their political affiliation. His statement reduced Uganda into a personal estate whose administrator has gathered his children to apportion it to his favored children. They are digging a big pit for the future of this country, and history will judge that coalition harshly. And going by the decision of the EC today regarding the NUP signatures, Mao's statement was no coincidence, but well calculated to demonstrate that elections will not determine the political transition of this country. Well, gentlemen and ladies, let's move on to our next topic, and we're going to look at the iPod Summit. There was a summit which is a meeting of the top leaders of the political parties. NUP was excluded despite being part of iPod by virtue of having MPs, members of parliament, in the 11th parliament currently. NUP has complained about this issue. NUP says iPod is a mere department of the National Consultative Forum, which is the bigger constitutional body for political party dialogue. And they seem to suggest that the aim is to weaken the NUP party, and that can be achieved through denying them funding that they are entitled to as provided for by the Constitution. Let's begin this discussion, and I want to begin with you, Mr. Egesa, on this particular one. What do you make of this development where it seems that the political parties are meeting, the leaders of the political parties are meeting, but one political party says they're entitled to be in that room, but they are not actually being involved?
Kenneth, I think, in my view, you should have combined these two topics.
That's why one is closer to the other.
So the comments that we've been discussing in the last 1 hour arose when Norber Mao, Honorable, was taking over the leadership of iPod.
No, actually.
From President Museveni.
No, actually. No. Those comments Mao made was at a press conference.
Okay.
But then, later on, the iPod meeting happened.
Okay, good. Thank you. Now, for me, I want to... This is my analysis of Uganda's political situation right now. And I'll tell you why NUP is excluded from the iPod. Because what is happening at the iPod is now a dining table. Yeah? So the dining table has the, at the end of the reception, you have the groom and the groomsmen.
So we are going to the reception.
Yeah. So the page boys and all
So you see why the analogy was important?
Yes. So now, at the dining table, you do not want the saboteurs, quote unquote, because they could actually knock a plate off the table, and I mean, you go without sauce. Yeah? So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that this is what is likely to happen, in my view, and I hope time vindicates me. President Museveni handled military transition. So he cleared the UPDF of the old guard. He cleared the Ruwero class out of the military. He cleared the 1985, 86, 87 class. The departure of people like Lieutenant General Elweru marked the final clearance of the 85, 86, 85, 86, 87 class from the UPDF. Now he's left with a few of those 1988 to 1993 class that joined the army, the NRA then. Now, after that, the UPDF would be purely headed by the Kasenyi group, which has General MK as their leader. So that is military transition complete. Then he has handled political transition. He first of all, they got allies. You remember the event of... was it a housewarming party at the Right Honourable Anita Among's home in Bukedea? You saw how MPs were lining up to shake hands with General MK? Yeah? That was a statement of intent, by President Museveni and General MK. It was a statement of intent that this is where now power is shifting. Okay? So now, Anita Among, Thomas Tayewa are also, overworking themselves to show loyalty to the new sheriff in town. Now, we have been in the NRM, delegates conference. I did mention here that what was happening was to clear the Central Executive Committee of the old guard. Now you have, until then, did you know who Jonah Dasimwe was? Many people didn't know. But he's an PLU mobilizer.
Coordinator.
So these guys have now taken over the NRM. They could choose to rebrand it to PLU, in order to try and mask the baggage that would come with the 40 years of the NRM. So that is also something they could do, because once they have captured all the structures of the party, they can actually choose to rebrand it and morph into another political party. Now, finally, what is going to happen after elections? Because I told you these elections are a facade. We know what the Electoral Commission will return after this election, that President Museveni will have won the election. Yeah, the rest is now managing the semantics of the numbers and what have you. So now, after the election, this is what is going to happen. General MK is going to appoint the cabinet. So we shall now be moving into a season. So now these guys at the iPod are the guys who are lobbying for positions in that post-election cabinet. Because President Museveni needs to give General MK as much support as he can. He's just being a protective father. Yeah. So after elections, General MK will appoint the cabinet. He might even step down from the military and be appointed vice president. He may not even step down. There is already a precedent. We have had General Katumba, we have had General David Muhoozi serving in the cabinet while they were still serving military officers. They have never retired from the military. So the next vice president of Uganda is most likely going to be General MK. Now, once General MK becomes vice president and he controls the biggest chunk of cabinet, then two scenarios. Either, which is very unlikely, that President Museveni can step down and allow MK to run the country while he holds his hand. The other is for them to have some kind of co-presidency, so that General Museveni withers away slowly and retreats to Xtra, so to speak, and then General MK will effectively assert his authority on the country. Now, this is what is going to happen, and all signs are there. When you saw the last cabinet reshuffle, you saw MK's people go into cabinet. They are now trying to identify who can we work with. Where is the money? That was the mission they were sent to do. Where is the money in cabinet? Who is doing deals with who? So this was an advanced team to do reconnaissance. It was a reconnaissance mission on how the business of cabinet of the executive is being managed. So that first group of, was it 5? Which includes the Honorable Balam Marugahara, the Honorable the one of energy, Nyamutoro. Yeah, that group was sent to cabinet to do reconnaissance. And then after election, you will see many of these PLU guys take up cabinet positions. And they will be working under who? Vice President General MK.
All right, let's go to one NRM member who is here in studio, and that's none other than Honorable Mulumba. Do you agree with this analysis that whatever is happening in IPOD is just a harbinger to the political transition that is going on? And in fact, all the leaders of these political parties that are in IPOD are there to actually give that warmth and clothing to General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is destined to take the reins
and
of power.
Flowering, yes.
What I want to say, that IPOD operates from an informal legal network. It was started and funded by the Netherlands Institute of Democracy, NIMD, and it is under POA and managed by POMA at times. Parliament, by Article 71, mandates it to make laws how parties are going to function and regulating parties, political parties. When it comes to IPOD, it is run by Memorandum of Understanding. And actually, it is not that we've had so many parties, including, I think, NUP and FDC at one time. They had walked out of.
NUP has never been part of IPOD.
Actually, NUP has never been part of IPOD. And at one time, FDC walked out from IPOD because actually it has no legal framework, properly so called.
Now it does.
No, it doesn't.
It does, following an amendment of the Political Parties and Organizations Act. IPOD was moved from the NGO status into the National Consultative Forum as a department.
So if it was done but extremely obnoxious.
If it had, then why didn't NUP just walk in?
That's why NUP is complaining.
Because if it had,
that's why NUP is complaining.
If it had, and they say it is for political parties.
That's why we are discussing.
Why didn't Ugandans walk into Parliament last year when they wanted to?
Because they're not members of Parliament.
Honorable Mulumba.
No, but Parliament is a member of House of the People.
No.
Honorable Mulumba.
Parliament has members of Parliament.
That's why NUP is complaining that meetings are being convened without them being notified about them. because they are assuming they are members of this arrangement.
Actually, you used the right word, that they assume the members of that outfit. For me, I'm telling you that iPod has a vague legal status, and that's why they're not there. Maybe they had to make an application.
They actually went to court. They are saying they cannot be, pushed to belong to something that they think they shouldn't. For them, they think the right organ that where political parties should meet and discuss issues is the National Consultative Forum.
So why are they complaining that they were not invited in the wrong organ?
What's your point?
Because if they're saying that the right organ is the National Consultative whatever,
because iPod has hijacked NCF.
And they went to court.
Because iPod has hijacked.
Wait a minute.
Because
they
now,
went to court.
Because now iPod
challenging
because
iPod.
now iPod
now
belongs.
Why is it that they want again to go
because
to
now iPod belongs to the National Consultative Forum, where they're even in leadership.
So I think maybe, by the way, I think let us be very clear in this politics.
What will be the politics around it then?
I think first of all, let them withdraw the suit that is challenging this whatever, and then they join iPod clearly.
No, but you see, NCF is constitutional, and it was not repealed even when when the law was amended. So that's the contention,
yes.
and that's why they are in court, because they are part of NCF.
Then how do you reconcile the fact that first of all they had said we're not there?
They are not part of iPod, but they are part of the NCF.
But they wanted to go in iPod.
No, you see now what is happening, it's like iPod is convening NCF. NCF is the constitutionally established body for parties to be able to play political content.
It's supposed to be chaired by the Electoral Commission. But now we have this outfit called iPod, where a leader of a political party becomes the chairperson of the summit.
So maybe I think one of the things that must be done, the courts need to pronounce themselves.
Absolutely.
Maybe
let's allow him to conclude. Why do you think it's
maybe
to help Honorable to contextualize what the argument is about by the NUP. It's just like the way President Museveni calls NRM party meetings in State House. That is the misnomer. Yeah, that NRM party meeting shouldn't be happening in State House.
No, actually,
because State House is government house.
What he has said is big.
Yeah?
He's saying
now,
that
iPod has hijacked the NCF.
But NCF is supposed to be
they are constituting themselves into NCF.
Yeah.
Yeah? They are posing to be NCF while holding out as iPod. Exactly. So that is the point of contention, I think.
I think maybe what is most important that party, but the courts need to pronounce themselves on this, and the regulation or Parliament needs to come out very clearly. If it doesn't come out clearly, then we are going to be having those vague things.
No, but they came out clearly in the law. They amended the law.
No,
it is just political bad manners by the NRM and its page voice. You are trying to clean up bad manners. This is political bad manners. What has happened?
NUP has not been a member
of iPod. But it's a member of NCF.
Exactly.
Now, what Parliament
it was iPod that was sitting, not NCF.
No, but you see, iPod is now a former organ of NCF. Now, the bigger body is the National Consultative Forum, where NUP is a member.
But the bigger party was not sitting. What was sitting was iPod.
No, but you see, iPod is right now under the law.
It's supposed to be chaired by the Electoral Commission. So I think the courts must pronounce themselves clearly and say either it's iPod or NCF.
I think you can see how that. I think you can see how these issues.
No, I think Honorable is applying a political tactic. Yeah, that if you cannot beat them, confuse them. That is the trick he's trying to use here. No, he's trying to confuse. Yeah,
there's no confusion.
No.
There are two things. There are two bodies. There is NCF and iPod.
iPod, the new law, is a former organ of NCF.
Either the courts should outlaw that, and then we know that you're going through NCF.
No, maybe help him understand.
No. Let me explain this to Honorable Mlumba. Honorable Mlumba, what happened when the Political Parties and Other Organizations Act was amended? iPod became a department of a bigger entity which is constitutional, called the National Consultative Forum, which is constitutionally supposed to be chaired by the Electoral Commission for political dialogue. But now a department is convening meeting and the NSF is not sitting and excluding a member of NSF, which is a bigger body. So what could be the politics in this?
I think in that, what needs to be done, that NUP needs to move the Electoral Commission to have NCF seat. So they should not go to something that they think they're not believing in, because actually they say they don't believe in it.
But you know, the other unfortunate part of this is that NUP is being denied the funding they are supposed to get.
That was part of the recent legislative amendment, yes.
The members in
and that's why,
that is unfortunate, and I think that is why I'm saying that the courts need to pronounce themselves. Actually, the courts need to pronounce themselves. You know, some of the things that some of the problems that we have in this country is that when a matter is taken to court and the justice is a thing that is very contentious, they just leave it.
They become timid.
And they become timid. So I think what is important is that the courts must pronounce themselves. Because these people say
they
say we don't believe in iPod, we believe in NCF, and they are right in that. Now, what was sitting there was iPod and not NCF. The EC was not chairing. It was being chaired by the president of Uganda, the chairman NRM, who handed over to the chairman DP, and the chairman DP is now is not sharing. And you know,
I have one question.
Kenneth, those are semantics.
Let's allow Perry. I want to ask one question.
Okay, you ask him.
My question is Honorable telling us that the timidity of judges to settle political disputes is one of the gains of the NRM that
actually
it is a loss.
The word timidity was brought in by Perry.
No, I said it as it is. They get timid.
Okay.
No, but they get timid.
All right.
Now, for me,
all right, let's hear
you know, all this is...
Let's allow Perry.
All this is semantics, because any country that wants to thrive, you want political parties to dialogue, because they are key feature of decision making. So for me, instead of the back and forth should not even happen, and that's why we have leaves to pick from Ghana. You have to make political dialogue a key feature of your politics, that you include all these political parties, regardless of whether you don't agree with them, because each person who sits on that table has ideas, they have followers, but you want to make decisions that are good for the country. So for me, I think it is actually it's a detriment to exclude a particular party just because of these semantics. At the end of the day, what do you want? You want to talk. Why do you want to talk? You want this country to grow, you know. So politicians must find a way to talk. And so this feature of iPod, I don't know, NCF, I think NCF is constitutionally, it's the bigger body. So if you have a department, in fact, for me, it's like when you go to a ministry. There are agencies and there are departments, but the bigger thing is the ministry. So when there's a meeting, you know that this other person is important for that meeting, you make sure they're part of it, especially if you know the importance of political dialogue for a country like Uganda.
All right, Joseph, before we go for a break, very quickly, your comments on this iPod thing.
You know, Perry is talking about Ghana. I happen to have been very lucky to have met Perry. One of the three critical players in brokering the impasse in Ghana following a disputed election that since then things have never been the same again. Ken, as it happened, disputed elections, as is typical in Africa. In Ghana, two competing political parties, they're relatively lucky. And thankfully in Ghana, politics is not owned and controlled by families or by Chwezi or by Luo Babito, you know, or by locally. So what happens? A political impasse, and guess what? Heads of security, top heads of security meet and call the two contending candidates. That is actually what broke Ghana. The military intelligence, three heads of security agencies, and one of the three I met, called the leaders to a room and said, you guys, you want to plunge Ghana into a mess. One. Number two, between the two of you guys, call them two individuals, no aides, whatever. You know who won the elections, you know? You know who won the elections, you know? We are not going to ask you what to do, but we are going to be on the side of the people of Ghana. These guys went out, told them that you go, make the decision. that was the end of it. And that's the conversation that is rarely held, including in public spaces in Ghana. That's how it happened about 18 or so years ago.
All right, Spectrum Xtra Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we will shift our gears and look at the nomination of presidential candidates. There is some information that is coming in that SFC will be guarding all presidential candidates in this particular process. So we now have nominations coming in. Let's go for a break. We'll continue with this discussion and see what this implies. Well, we thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Xtra, reviewing the major events of a week. A panel of four: Ms. Perry Aritua, Mr. Leonard Degesa, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, and the Honorable Mehdi Mulumba. We are trying to make sense of the top events of the week. We've discussed a statement which was made by the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, who also happens to be the DP leader, about the coalition of the willing and the political parties that prefer to play poisonous politics. We concluded that we have looked at the iPod situation and what it means, and now we want to shift our gears. Starting next week, the Electoral Commission will be nominating presidential candidates, and we know the turn-up. There were so many people actually picked the papers. We were told around this time we'll be knowing who was basically there for making content for TikTok and other platforms, and those who are serious about running for the office of the presidency. And now, finally, the information has started coming in. Before we came on air, from what we had seen, President Yoweri Museveni has been cleared. There are two other people who have been cleared. One of the political parties, NUP, is facing a hurdle to raise 1,800 extra signatures to have, the nomination exercise to go forward. They were planning to have Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, nominated on Tuesday next week. So they are back in the field to collect the signature. But let's look at the entire political environment as we prepare for this particular process. And I want to begin with the seasoned election observer, Ms. Perry Aritua.
Thank you, Kenneth. As we look forward to the nominations, 2021 actually keeps replaying in my mind. Because there are things that happen which I had never seen.
I know why, but I won't say it.
No. I'm just thinking about the nomination itself. And I think Power repeated that when he was meeting the president, where you're going for nominations and you have to somehow reach the nomination center barefooted for a number of reasons. Where I know the Honorable Kyagulanyi, Joel Senyonyi, immediately after nomination, there's chaos. And we are thinking this is supposed to be the precursor to the election. What that does is you cause certain level of fear in the citizens. So even if a lot of work has been done on encouraging citizens to engage in the process, you have already created an environment which is not very peaceful for the citizen. Now, as we move towards the next election, I don't know what is going to be different, because we did not hear what happened to those who were culprits in intimidating some of the presidential candidates. Ugandans didn't get a report on that. So for me, it's like the same fears are going to repeat themselves. And that's why when we were submitting in the first part, I said, right now the institutions need to give Ugandans confidence. And the confidence is their actions and their words. That if the law is saying this is how the process will be, let it go as planned, so that you encourage Ugandans to participate in this process, which I believe is important, because ideally that is how we are supposed to get our leaders elected. So the EC will have to play, I think, its role needs to up its game to ensure that some of the things that happened during the nomination of presidential election candidates in 2021 do not happen. And if they do, it should be seen to call out some of those practices, because we did not hear a statement, and that destroys the confidence of citizens in the process. So of course, for the NUP, they have to meet the 1,800 signatures that are needed, because that's the law. And for me, I'm a strong believer in the law. But the thing is, the law only has power when those who exercise it fairly. And if citizens feel there's any selective application, they start mistrusting the process. So it's important that the announcement came out that I had the Secretary General of NUP saying they're going to get the signatures. Once they meet those thresholds, let us see a peaceful nomination process so that we are encouraged to participate, even when I know Egesa has already painted what the election is going to be. I live on hope. I always say I thrive on hope, because that's the only thing that makes you wake up. And for Ugandans, I think that is something we need to continue to emphasize, that this is an important process. Even when we have fears, the institutions should continue to give us confidence through being more independent, be seen to be independent, have less, making the election become like a military operation also creates fear. These rumors of SFC, I don't know, going to guard presidential candidates, yet we know it's the police which is supposed to provide security. Those are the things which actually create apathy.
Why are you calling them rumors?
For me, it's still a rumor until it becomes a reality, because according to the law, really the police is in charge. That's what I know.
The police is in charge, but we are told
Should be in charge.
at a certain point the police can invite.
But really, for guarding presidential candidates.
They're training them to become presidents.
No, they only assume that role once you are president.
All right, Mr. Gesa, let's hear from you on this particular nomination process and what is happening so far.
The circus that you are seeing in the Electoral Commission, of course, we have had the NUP complained before even the Electoral Commission came out. The NUP complained that security officers, that is the intelligence officers like GISOs, DISOs, were calling their supporters who had signed nomination forms of the NUP candidate and asking them to sign for the NRM candidate. Then the Electoral Commission clears the NRM candidate first so they could invalidate the forms that bear the signatures of these same people that they had been calling. Now that already shows you that the Electoral Commission is not in charge of that election facade that we are walking into. So it is a very poor showing by the Electoral Commission. And ironically, it is now no longer called the Electoral Commission. It's called the Independent Electoral Commission.
Do you doubt they're independent?
That your guess is as good as mine.
That amendment of the name of the Electoral Commission did not pass, so they retained their name Electoral Commission.
Oh, did they?
Sure. Yeah, it did not pass. It did not pass.
Okay, I stand corrected. So now, what happens is this: even if it didn't pass, they are expected to be independent.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So that's supposed to be the normal state of affairs. So anyway, what is happening? If we look at it from the political bit of it, because the Electoral Commission is basically a President Museveni walking stick. I don't close these things.
The Electoral Commission is a constitutional body.
Kenneth, I am a political strategist. I am not a constitutional lawyer. I am not a member of parliament. I'm a political strategist. I deal with real politics as it is. I say it as it is. I tell you that this one means this. So I'm telling you that the Electoral Commission we have in Uganda today is an extension of the military. Uganda, I have stated here, time without number, Uganda is under a military government. Yeah. Okay, so the Electoral Commission is one of the people, or the institutions accessorizing, the operations of the military government. So what I'm trying to tell you is that in terms of political strategy, President Museveni has always preferred to frame the elections as a referendum on him, the person, and his role. Okay, so now, this is a provocative move by the Electoral Commission to the NUP to try and whip the anti-Museveni sentiment to side with the NUP. So that the pro-Museveni sentiment and the other, of course, now even the page boys and flower girls have been talking about will now be on the side of the pro-Museveni sentiment. So you will find that the supporters of FDC, who will be voting for Nathan Nandala Mafabi, will be probably voting for him maybe because he's their kinsman, or simply because they just think that we need to have a change, but not because they disagree with anybody who associates with the politics of President Museveni. So what I'm trying to show you is that President Museveni is using this, the Electoral Commission is actually playing President Museveni's political game by trying to provoke the NUP into this kind of shenanigans. They are trying to frame the coming electoral facade as a referendum on President Museveni. And now the moment that happens, what it means is that you no longer have an election that is based on issues. Yeah, you see, you can see that in the build up to that electoral facade, people are not discussing issues affecting Ugandans. What we are discussing is you are selling party tickets.
Yeah.
You have been compromised by President Museveni. You have done petty things, and who is the center in all this? President Museveni. So he has framed the whole political conversation in Uganda today about him and his son by extension. Okay, so the issues are now relegated to the backside. Then we also don't have identity. I want to disagree with Honorable Mulamba. He said that Mulumba. Sorry, I'm sorry about mispronouncing your name. So when you said that ethnicity, it is not bad to determine politics on ethnicity. Ethnicity is just one parameter of identity. Politics of identity is what you see world over. Identity could be by ethnicity. Identity could be by ideology. Identity could be by religious beliefs. Yeah, it could be by anything. So for me, I think it is perfectly okay if we said Ugandans, if for example Nathan Nandalamafabi can mobilize Bukedi, Bugisu, Teso to vote for him, there's nothing wrong with that, and he should feel free to campaign. That's why we even have cultural institutions promoting their culture. It is not criminal for you to show patriotism in regards to your ethnic grouping. Yeah. So, but President Museveni has always made it a point that ethnicity does not become a factor. Why? Because it can easily be used against him and take him out of power. So on that, I give him, I concede that he has beaten us to that. Now, the moment he has...
Who are you?
Ugandans. Oh. The Ugandan citizen. So in other words, now the election is quickly being framed as a Museveni referendum, something that we had been having in the past. In 2021, there was some bit of a shock because Robert Chagulanyi, the Honorable Robert Chagulanyi, came as, a wild card at the beginning, so they did not really know how to handle him, but trust me, President Museveni now knows him from A to Z. So all these provocations are by design. They are not accidental. They are not by incompetence of the Electoral Commission. No, it's because the Electoral Commission is captive. It is being run by the military.
All right.
Uganda is a military government.
All right, let's go to Mr. Cheno. Mr. Cheno, nominations are taking place. I don't know if you've agreed with Honorable Jimmy Akena when you'll be escorting him for the nomination. I don't know.
The groomsman.
But
please withdraw that because
you might be the catechist.
Please withdraw that because do I look like a groomsman? Do I look like a page boy?
You just need a suit and a tuxedo.
And you pass.
I take very strong exception, but because you're a fantastic young man. So no. This process is actually generally shambolic, but I think maybe I'll be slightly much more broad and brief. The nomination paper questions. Many people have argued that perhaps as part of a process for restricting candidates and people's, we should review these. Maybe we should ask for more or ask for more money. I think I'm content that people picking up nomination forms should continue to be as open as it was this time round. And for us, political observers should ask ourselves why more people picked this time than they did in 1980. What was the difference? And that should really be the issue. Number two, I actually suggest that the threshold is generally very unrealistic. If anything, I think is a test that should really not qualify for political parties and organizations. I think the threshold should be reduced for political parties and individuals. In any case, maybe this should be restricted to individuals who are standing as independents. And in any case, then give them relative thresholds. The Electoral Commission would already have registered a political party, and the political party would already have met its criteria. So to give them people these numbers, I think it's a kind of charade that I think Egesa is telling us, that we go ahead and become part of a game. And then you can see in the last 2 months, people get excited, picking nomination forms and then signatures, and then we're involved. Actually, we're basically escorts to particular grouping and particular interest groups. And number three, actually, I also believe, Perry, that this 20 million shilling thing is theft, Mr. Museveni would not have afforded 20 million shillings in 1980, and I don't even know whether he would have afforded that in 1986.
Vice chairman of the military commission.
He was vice chairman of the military commission, but 20 million shillings.
And the former minister of defense.
Unless those days breaking the bank like they do these days was not there. I'm UPC. I know what this thing's all about. But finally, as it happens, it seems to be very interesting that maybe partly because of this and partly because of the conversation around the NUP, which is very unfortunate, it's interesting that the major political parties are not being counted as numbers. Now, as far as UPC is concerned, we do not expect to be seen at a nominations place unless the judiciary does some magical things within the next 24 hours. And that's part of what Igesa was saying. And so it's an indictment on them. Because as I told you, Jim McKenna is not president of Uganda People's Congress, has not been.
But he has been received by the Electoral Commission and given even forms to
the Electoral Commission ought to explain themselves, to the people of Uganda and indeed to leaders, members of Uganda People's Congress, the circumstance under which they did. As I said, they actually nearly were being contemptuous. But as I understand it, I think they may have woken up within the last 24 hours. That's what I can say as of that.
All right. Let's go very quickly.
In the event that this is actually done and organized, thankfully, as a political party, Perry, we have the machinery to collect signatures very, very quickly. And as I said, I'm surprised that NUP is struggling. Away from I'm saying away from the machinations as suggested. And in fact, if I was advising them, I would have known better to have done slightly more and slightly better. Like as I understand it, in what Jimmy did, I think, as I said, although inappropriately, he gathered quite as much to try and beat up the process. But that said, I really hope that come next week, we are going to be seeing an escort of many of these guys. But if UPC resolves itself, we've got the infrastructure across the country to be able to gather 100 signatures per district across the country. UPC, more than most other political organizations, except NRA that uses local government structures, we are the best place to be able to do so.
All right, Honorable Mulumba, let's hear your take about these nominations. Any concerns that you have? Your leader has already, been cleared to be nominated.
Thank you very much. I want first of all to say that NRM with President Museveni took over 2 million signatures, which are verified, and everything is okay. When I talk about, Ochen talked about the threshold. When we look at some of these parties, some of them are briefcase parties.
True.
And actually, some of these parties are sold. Somebody gets his party and he's a one-man party and he sells it and others say, so if you say we don't use the threshold, we may be.
I'm saying we reduce.
No, we don't need to reduce because some of them are briefcase parties. NUP was bought. Somebody sold NUP. Yes.
NURP.
That one, whatever that one. So then when we talk about these, we
do not have evidence on this table that a political party was bought by a certain.
But the people went to court.
You see, Kenneth, this is not a political law. This is a political discussion.
You're just an happy faith. Don't worry.
What we know. A delegates conference sat and leadership emerged.
No, Ken, this is a political discussion. People can hold political opinion.
But I'm also telling you the truth.
No, his opinion is that it was both.
When he talked about
opinions must be substantiated.
When he talked about no. I can substantiate it.
You see,
this is the party which used to belong to Chibalama, who gave it away with an inducement, and actually tried to claim it. Yeah. They refused to give it back to him because they said there is some delegates conference which sat, and nobody knows actually when it sat, but somehow it sat.
But if you say that Kibalama sold the party, how then does he claim it back? Once you sell something,
the transaction is not complete.
Why don't we restrict ourselves to this? Because that can be taken. That's a big conversation. You talked about people that the other election, but somebody went without shoes.
Exactly.
But honestly, there are so many people who went with shoes. Maybe that person who went without shoes, maybe somehow, at times when people are in the opposition, think that they can do whatever they want to do, just like some people in NRM, they can think that they are above the law. I think maybe at the end of the day, we must tell these candidates to be law-abiding, to make sure that, I saw last time during the elections, whenever they were arresting Besigye, there were some candidates who are running also to be arrested. That somebody comes and sits in the seat of a police officer because he wants to be seen that government is torturing him or torturing her. Actually, it was her mainly, and they take her because he wants. It was her mainly. So we saw all those things. But at times people want to be arrested, and of course, again, we also have a problem. There is the overzealousness of the security guys. For example, I come from Luka. I don't actually up to date. I cannot understand why they had the mayhem in Luka, because everything was planned, and NUP was going to be in Luka for like an hour, or go to Viende. Then somebody came and said, tear gas. And there was mayhem in the country. So I think maybe this is the time that we must call on the security players not to be overzealous, to try to be, we need a peaceful election. People were shot. People had their legs broken. They had their property lost in Luka, and actually it gave a bad image to the whole country because of that. So I think maybe that one is we need to look at that. And when there was a time I saw Katumba. Katumba Oye. Katumba Oye was arrested. He said that I've not campaigned. Have you seen me say Katumba Oye? And nobody saw him saying Katumba Oye, but they were arresting. they were arresting Katumba. So I would say that we don't need overzealous security personnel who are going to be doing
it's a political circus.
It's
a political circus.
And then I also want to as
you check this, if you don't mind, was there a need for NRA to present 2 million signatures?
Yes, you're saying NUP. Actually, you are very
2 million.
No, you're even telling NUP. You're even telling NUP.
That's true. Yes.
No, but the 2 million.
Wait a minute.
2 million included those ones stolen from NUP.
Wait a minute. You said NUP should have gotten more numbers. NRM didn't want to be called.
Not 1 million.
No, it doesn't matter. It's a mass party.
It's a circus.
But there's one thing also.
Lastly,
I don't understand why people like, for example, I think like people like Akena, people like Nandala Mafabi, following what Norber Mao said, and maybe Mpuga, they need not to go into this election for the presidency.
They need to negotiate.
Because it is very clear that Mao has made it very clear. Just even like Mao.
And they are pledge boys.
No.
You say it.
We're the group of 5. The group of 5. As a group of 5, I think we need to stand by the group of 5. We don't need to confuse our people.
And escort our leader. Okay.
It makes sense. I'm telling you, they should not confuse the people. They should not waste time for the people. Because right now it is very clear, amongst other things, we are looking at a transition, and they are part of the transition.
So their parliamentary candidates will suffer.
No, actually, at the end of the day,
then their negotiation power drops.
Yes, sir. At the end of the day, the president said, by this time, we shall not have opposition. And I think we are going to go there. We are going to have 2 parties, maybe the other poisonous part, and the
one of the Bachwezi and one of the Balokole.
No, locally. For example, I'm not in locally, I'm not in Chwezi, but we are in the group.
What are you?
Like you.
Okay, good.
We're in a group of 5.
Well, gentlemen and lady, we need to bring discussion to an end very quickly. So, Perry, looking forward, what would be your major call as we enter into this very interesting political season? Very quickly.
I think for me, it's the major institution in this country in charge of election is the Electoral Commission, to continue to give us confidence that they are trying their best amidst all the challenges, the allegations, to give these citizens some confidence to participate.
All right, with that we come to the end of Spectrum Extra. I must thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for making time to be here. And thank you very much, dear listeners, for contributing to this discussion via your text messages. From me and the panel, we wish you a fabulous weekend, but stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90 because the great songs and great memories are coming up with BB Jr. doing the solo.